guys, this is the Fat Panda, and I am here with the Week 1 Power Rankings. We successfully concluded a full week of battling, with every team participating, thankfully, and I've got some minor updates with some new rises and falls of teams coinciding with their battle results. Some first impressions I got from the teams, from coaches I haven't seen play before, or who are playing different ways than I'm used to. And I also have some trades to go over. It was actually a fairly busy week of trading. The first week it's available and the last week it's available are generally the busiest. So I'll have a bunch of fun things to dive in there with you today. First team overall, no surprise to anyone, with a successful win in their first week is the Tennessee Red Gyarados, who were led to victory by their Centiskorch with its G-Max power. Managed to pick up 4 KOs this week, which is tied for second in the MVP tracking. Although, actually, I think it's actually in third or something because it did get knocked out itself, so it's only at 3 differential. But regardless, he showed some good battle prowess with his team, stalling out the opponent's G-Max with his own Jellicent between Strength Sap and Burn, and then setting up a coil with Centiskorch and taking the win from there, showing some pretty good handles on the new team. Melmetal didn't even have to show up, so if he manages to win so easily with just what he's got there, I don't even want to think what it's going to be like once it finally starts coming into the battle as well. At number 2, fresh off a win as well, is the Melbourne Lucarios, holding strong to that number 2 slot. Dragged to battle with some excellent endgame play by the Primarina, managing to tank a hit from an opposing Venusaur and grab a couple KOs on that in a Hydreigon. Very good endgame play. I thought things were starting to look hopeless against the Seattle team, but he managed to pull it back and salvage a victory. First trade so far that we're going to be going over. Melbourne is dropping Manectric for Heatmore down in the C tier. Overall, I'm fairly indifferent to this trade. I think it's probably a good trade. Manectric wasn't really doing anything that Galvantula couldn't do, if you discount the fire attack that Manectric can throw out. But with Heatmore on the battlefield now for Melbourne, he still has access to those fire moves coming off stab, and also just new typing that the team didn't have before. So overall, I think it was a good trade. I don't think either participant would have been seen battle very often, but diversity is generally a strong thing in draft leagues, so I do indeed like this trade from Melbourne Lucarios. At number 3, we have the Sacramento Kingler with a large jump this week. Actually, I think they just came up from 4. It's not often that a team will rise, especially this high in the power rankings where we are right now, when they actually lose their first match. But I really liked watching most of Sacramento's battle against TRG. It's just he was going up against what I think is easily and far away the best team in the league, and it's kind of hard to really fault him for losing to that team. But what really sticks out to me is that Sacramento identified some things that he didn't think were going to work on his team, made some trades, and I really like where he ended up. Indeedee Hawlucha is a fairly good combination, but Hawlucha was a little awkward on the team, and trading it off for Hatterene actually offers some really good power that the team was lacking kind of before. Both of them are very strong. Hawlucha requires a little bit of setup to really get going. Hatterene, while it can set up with Trick Room or Calm Mind or both, is also just really good out of the gate. And the support between Hatterene and Capraja GMX is actually going to be really nice to watch. The other trade, Arctozolt for Vanillix, I think is an amazing trade. I think Vanillix is super underrated in Draft League. Specs Blizzards, now that it has Snow Warning, is really nice. And it's going to do significantly more for him than I think Arctozolt would have ever done. So some really good trades, I think, make the team a lot stronger than it was before. And because of this, I've actually had them rise in the power rankings despite the loss, because I think they'll still be one of the top teams in the league. At number 4, I have the Vegas Golden Magnemites with a fresh win against Minnesota. No real transactions to speak, but I was definitely impressed by their play this in week 1. He used GMX Hatterini early. He manages to get a couple KOs with it, which is one of the best things. GMXs are great at breaking a team apart or cleaning, and in this case, it was a great example of breaking a team, and benefited probably from a opponent misplay a little bit by he got a ton of chip on GMX Grimmsnarl with his Drapion when it probably wasn't necessary for that Grimmsnarl to come in, but you certainly can't fault someone for taking advantage of a gift that's getting thrown their way, and because of that, I have him rising up in the rankings this week as well. At number 5, I have the Minnesota Lycanrocs. Very strong team. It's just that I feel like some of the teams below him performed better either in battle or in trades this past week. And so, unfortunately, he does drop a little bit from 3rd to 5th place. Very strong team, but was kind of picked apart by the Vegas Golden Magnemites in battle, and also picked apart by his own mind during the battle as well. Made a couple trades, though. He ended up doing a coach swap of trading his Colossal over to the Warsaw Rapidash for their Hitmonchan, and he ended up dropping Leafeon for Trevenant. Both of these are trades that I think are generally going to benefit him, I believe. I think Leafeon is leagues worse than Trevenant outside of very, very specific circumstances, which it doesn't really look like he is going to be setting up for it with, sun and whatnot. So I think Trevenant will overall provide a much more useful presence on this team. Colossal and Hitmonchan, neither of them are terribly exciting, but having access to even more priority in Mach Punch is never really a bad thing. They both offer bulky spinners. It's just kind of like the little extras in the typings that one person might care more about. It's a fine trade. It doesn't really get me going or anything. I think the Leafeon and the Trevenant was better, but they're both trades that I have no problem with, that's for sure. At number 6, sitting solid in the 6th slot, is the Boston Red Sox with a very clean win, I believe, it was the Bolton Boldores. Bolton basically had one Mon that could end up even trying to break through a Vaporeon, but it was a choice Mon, so it becomes even harder to break Vaporeon because it could just protect every time that Rotom came in, and it would know whether or not it had to switch. So Vaporeon manages to wall the entire team, and Durant came in late game, got a nice clean 4 kills, and is on the MVP board for this week as well. Very, very good play. Just used a pretty standard balance tactic where you just, whittle the team down a little bit, and then you've got your fast cleaner or whatever, in this case Durant, to kind of finish it all up. Did make one trade, as you can see. He actually had a GMAX swap with free agency, and has dropped his Dreadnought for a Duraludon GMAX. Overall, I think this is a great change for him. I didn't really like the Dreadnought on the team in the first place. I didn't think he really had a way to abuse it all that much. And Duraludon overall offers, I think, better offensive presence than the Dreadnought was able to. It's faster, and I think its offensive typing is better. And, I mean, even if he goes into having 2 Dragons and 2 Steel types now, it doesn't really bother me, because if you look at the weaknesses and resistances that Duraludon offers compared to Dreadnought, it ends up being significantly better overall. So I do really like this trade. I think Duraludon will have a larger impact this season than Dreadnought would, and the Gmax's impact cannot be overstated, because they are just absolutely so powerful that if you can't abuse yours, then it's going to be a really, really long season for you. At number 7, I have the Seattle Serperior with a little bit of a bump in the rankings after their loss. They did end up losing to the Melbourne Lucario, but I really, really liked what I saw out of them. The synergy between Torkoal and Charizard and Venusaur looks absolutely disgusting, like I thought it might. And I think this team is going to be really, really scary in the future. Really wish I could have seen the Darmanitan in there, like with a Choice Band or something. I don't think there's a wall in the world that was going to take that. But yeah, I really, really liked what I saw that match. And if he can bring that kind of same pressure each week, he's going to end up with more wins than losses. And that's usually enough to carry you to the playoffs, where anything can happen in this league. At number 8, with a really, really big jump, is the Warsaw Rapidash. I really, really liked what I saw out of him on this week number 1. He just was absolutely dominating. Cobalion, Roserade, there were no answers for them. And it was just a one-sided performance for Warsaw. Did make that one coach swap here with Minnesota, as you saw before, where he receives a Colossal for Hitmonchan. I like this trade for him more than I technically like it for Minnesota, even if it is maybe underwhelming either way. But he's gained a fire type, he's gained a rock type, and he already had 2 fighting types with Cobalion being there. So he didn't lose any spinning, he gained hazards. I can't really say much more about that. I think it's a good fit for his team with Colossal, and I expect it to show up every now and again. And really, when you're looking at C tiers, that's all you can ask for the most part. At number 9, I have the Rochester Raboot, who are engaged in easily the longest match of the week against the Tampa Bay Toxtricity, where it was 2 balanced teams that are more focused towards stall than breaking. It was a very long, not terribly exciting match, to be honest. But overall, the tankier team, or the team with the better recovery, ended up winning, and that was the Rochester Raboot. I really liked watching how he played with the Aromatisse and the rest of the team. Hippowdon, while I still maintain that I don't think it's a good fit on this team, in this particular match, it didn't bring sand, and it was absolutely taking everything there. So it definitely performed this week. I think there might be things that it could be that would be better for the team overall. But once again, you can't really fault someone for using what they have and using it well, as it was this week. At number 10, we have the Farmland Farfetch'd with another jump as well, up from 13. The Farmland Farfetch'd had a just dominating match. GWS Galladiators could not begin to break through Toxapex. They only had one Mon that could do it, which was Zeraora, and it never really got the chance. The one time I remember it coming out, it ended up getting burned, and after that point, the Toxapex could just stall the entire team at that point. He used it early well to just stall out G-Max Colossal. It wasn't even able to touch him, and between that and Scarf Toxtricity, there really was no answer that the Gladiators could give to even begin to halt this team. Got one trade for the Farmland Farfetch'd this week. They are dropping Quagsire for Mudsdale. I mean, I think it's absolutely an improvement. I still maintain that this team absolutely needs more offense on it. I don't think Toxtricity and Obstagoon can really carry the entire load. I know that I see like there's Hitmonlee, Bellossom too, and whatnot, but those two are going to be having to do the absolute lion's share of the work through the season. And I think if you can find at least one more offensive piece somewhere to help kind of fill it in, the team will be much better off. But as far as context goes for this trade, I think Mudsdale is absolutely better than Quagsire on the specific team. He really didn't need both Quagsire and Toxapex, so getting something like Mudsdale, I think, is at least better than it was before. At number 11, with the unfortunate largest fall of the week, as far as I'm aware, is the Tampa Bay Toxtricity. When I was kind of going over the team in the first place, I noticed, there's a lot of fat there. There's not very much setup, not even really all that much real offense. And it could end up being a problem, which is definitely what we saw this week, where he brought a more balanced team against the Rochester Raboot, but it didn't have the recovery it needed. It didn't have the breaking power it needed. And it was just kind of lacking on all ends of the spectrum. And it ended up getting grinded out in a pretty dang long match. I think that's going to be the biggest problem this team faces this season, is that it's really, really lacking in breaking power, I think, is the hardest part. There are a lot of good, fat, kind of offensive, but not really bulky mons on this team. And he needs more than just Dragapult, really, for just pure out-of-the-gate offense. So we'll see if he makes any trades in free agency or with other coaches, because I think something will have to be done, or I think Tampa Bay is going to be in for a rougher season than you might think. At number 12, I have the Bolton Boldores. They were unfortunate in having to go against Boston this weekend. Didn't really have a way to break through. Was it Boston? Yeah, it was Boston. They didn't really have a way to break through that Vaporeon outside of Rotom. And really, if you have one Mon that can break something, and you're going against a Mon that often runs Protect like Vaporeons do, general rule of thumb is you probably should not be choosing the Mon that can break it. Because whenever Rotom came out on Vaporeon, all Vaporeon would have to do is Protect, and all of a sudden your entire game plan is thrown away, because he knows exactly what you're going to do, and outside of some sort of double, there's really no way to counterplay it. You can't trick it. If you're going for a Thunderbolt or whatever, he could just swap. So it really kind of makes it significantly harder for you to pilot your team when you're up against something like that. So something like, Sub or Toxic or something could be significantly better in that case. I still like the makeup of the team, even if nothing stands out a ton. I think Excadrill, Weavile, Goodra, Gigalith are all really good. I just don't think the prep this week was necessarily up to par when you looked at what he was going against. At number 13, I have the GWS Galladiators with a loss this week. The one thing I've noticed about the Gladiators from season to season is that he tends to have a lot of trouble against real balanced teams. And it really wasn't any different of a story this week. He wasn't able to break through the defensive core that Farmland brought. And after he'd gotten chipped down, all it took was Scarf Toxtricity to clean up for the most part with Boom Burst. The one thing I saw that I really didn't like early was that he blew Colossal literally turn 1. And sometimes early G-Maxing is certainly powerful. You saw that in the match with Vegas, where G-Max Hatterini was blown early and got a couple kills. Colossal isn't particularly a Mon that could do that, unfortunately. It's got no real offense to speak of. Against offensive typing, Fire, Grok with ground coverage is really good. But with base 80 offenses and no way to set up for the most part outside of weakness policy, it really just becomes kind of miserable to watch, because all Farmland had to do was swap in his Toxapex, hit recover a couple times, and all of a sudden Colossal had nothing left. So, hopefully he maybe try. I don't know if he was trying to beta weakness policy or something. I can't remember if one popped or anything at some point, but whatever it was, it definitely did not work for the Gladiators this week, and we'll see if he can get it going in his week 2 battle. At number 14, and the award of most unlucky coach of the week, is the Hekseville Honchkrows. Hexaville completely and utterly outplayed and dominated his opponent, Atlanta, through the entire match, up until the exact moment his opponent's Togekiss came in and got 2 straight Ancient Power boosts and swept him back. There's absolutely nothing you can do to prep for that, and it was pure 100% bad luck that Hexaville lost, because if that hadn't happened, it would have probably been a 5-0, 6-0. It would have been an absolutely dominating victory for him. So it's really hard to fault his play this week. Excellent play from his Quillfish, his Corviknight. Just there was some great plays made, but when your opponent all of a sudden has a +2 in every stat, Togekiss looking at you, there's really no way to deal with that. So I certainly can't fault him. I can't really raise him too much on the power rankings right now, but I thought he played very well, and it was just 100% bad luck that he lost. At number 15, and the beneficiary of most lucky coach of the week, is the Atlanta Beedrills, who got a 6-kill Togekiss off of 2 Ancient Power Boosts. And outside of that, honestly, I didn't see a lot I liked this week. He just didn't really have a way to break the opponent's core of Quillfish, Corviknight, a couple other fatty mons. And if it hadn't been for those boosts, and I'd have to look at sets and everything, but kind of just eyeballing things, I almost feel like he needed both boosts to even sweep. I think one boost he caught really would have still lost from. So lowest coaching ranking I've probably ever given to a 1-0 coach, but as I went over last week, I don't particularly like this team all that much, and I think he got really lucky. But hey, if you can get a few Ancient Power spams every week, see if you get lucky. I mean, I guess that's kind of what mons like Togekiss or Jirachi are for, right? If you're not pushing your luck, you're probably not playing them right. And at number 16, we have the Toronto Torterras at 0-1. Match overall this week, I felt like the coach almost played his match backwards. If you watch it, he tried to use his more offensive, potentially set up mons early in the match, leaving Lapras in the back. And then when they failed, got chipped down, got statused, whatever, Lapras had to come out and try to clean up by getting the KOs itself, which is not Lapras's forte by any means. If he'd played the match the other way around, if he'd used his Lapras early, maybe gotten off a good resonance, he might have been able to set up, assuming they had it with Celebi or Lucario, because he absolutely needed to get something going. Otherwise, that Cobalion was just going to walk all over him, which it ended up doing in the first place. So he didn't really have an answer for it. Granted, his team doesn't really have an answer for Cobalion, but I feel like trying to get off a resonance or something early probably would have really helped. He did make one trade. He finally, it's the first chance he got, but he did get rid of Snom for Cinccino, which, I mean, you get rid of Snom for literally anything, and I'd say it's a good trade, but I do like Cinccino. I think it's a underutilized low-tier mon for draft leagues. I think anything with skill link and high speed has the ability to be abused, and it's got really good coverage. It can run Band, Scarf, it can run King's Rock and just try to cheese out wins. So I do really like it. I mean, its biggest thing holding it back is probably the fact that Tail Slap isn't always going to hit, but I mean, I think it's very good. I'm more happy that I'm never going to have to see Snom again, which is, the best part of the week for me probably. Overall, here we have the rankings for you, just in case you wanted to take another look with how much they rose or fall on the side. Got some seasonal MVPs so far for you. Obviously, Togekiss in first, sweeping an entire team, but we also had strong showings from Durant, Cobalion, and I believe there's Aromatisse and Toxapex also are at +4, but they lost on tiebreakers for secret, undisclosed reasons that only I know. Ha ha. But good information here. Really excited to see what happens this week for week 2 battles. Got some really good matchups, some good games to see. So until next week, y'all have a great time.